This was one of the most epic days diving in the UK I've ever had. Last year I was filming for a TV show and things just lined up with magical conditions, clean water and vast amounts of fish life. The goal was to try and find some big pollock, so I followed Joe Pike down to a pinnacle around 20 meters deep. The first dive of the day is never an easy one with no warm-up, but we both got down to the kelp and some pollock started to show up. Unfortunately, Joe grabbed his little 75cm spear gun with a sloppy old single band. It always pains me as a cameraman to get into this position, the fish come in and then they miss the shot. It takes a lot of effort to get into these positions, but so it goes. Swimming back up to the front edge, we wanted to have another go at the pollock. While breathing up, a beautiful compass jellyfish drifts past in the current. These are a common summer visitor to the UK's coastal waters, identified by the V-shaped brown markings on its translucent bell. They do have a mild stinging sensation like a nettle, so it's best not to have one wrapped around your face. There were loads of pollock around, but sadly no larger fish, which we really wanted for the show. However, a shoal of blackberry moved in through the kelp, but again, no standout fish. With a lack of target fish and a big seal showing up, we decided to move to another area. This next reef is a huge system which you can dive as shallow or as deep as you like. Right up in the shallows, I was busy filming this ballan wrasse when I ran into a shoal of small bass. The longer I stayed in the area, the more bass that kept coming in to check me out. It's amazing when you don't have a spear gun and just a camera, how much more calm the fish tend to be. Whenever you see this stringweed, you know the bass won't be far away. They absolutely love hiding in and amongst this stuff. A lot of new divers will tend to get fixated on how deep they are diving and that it will be the key to their success. Look how shallow it is here. Stringweed doesn't grow too far from the sunlight, and as I tilt the camera up, you can see how close I am to the surface. By this stage, I'd captured loads of great footage and needed to get some spearfishing action in the can. Mike Robinson is the first one to dive on the bass. For someone in their mid-50s who only started spearfishing 3 years ago, he has come along in leaps and bounds. It's been a pleasure to watch his progression in the spearfishing world. Unfortunately, he doesn't have enough lead on his belt for this shallower water and starts to rise off the bottom. Not ideal, but he stays calm, focuses on the target, and makes it count. That's our first bass on board. Mike is soon back down to try for his second bass of the day. The recreational limit is 2 bass per person per day. Hesitating on the first target, he makes no mistakes on bass number 2. Now it's time to film Joe Pike having a drop on this shoal of bass. He lands on the kelp and gets himself in a comfortable position. Now, one thing that can be very frustrating about filming Joe is his extremely casual nature underwater, where he likes to take his time before selecting his target. It makes him a great spear fisherman, but it's a pain in the butt to film sometimes. I'm beginning to think he's not going to pull the trigger, but this is making for some all-time footage. Finally, after this larger bass practically swam into his spear tip, we have some more great footage in the can. Time for Joe's second bass. Once again, he settles on the bottom and waits for the fish to come to him. Notice how calm and relaxed his movements are underwater, even after spearing the fish. That is what you want to strive for when spearfishing. Total relaxation. With my job just about done for the session, I swapped the camera out for a spear gun. While there were plenty of bass here and I could have easily taken my two, we decided to check out some other areas that were a little deeper on the way back home. This lump came up to around 17 meters and didn't have a huge show on the sonar, but it was definitely worth a drop as I've shot many fish here before. Eventually, a shoal materialized and I looked for a standout fish with a big head. This ended up being a solid bass at 9.5 pounds and certainly a nice perk of the job. Contrary to what line fishermen will tell you, these big bass are fantastic to eat with thick, chunky fillets, especially from the shoulder. You also get a huge amount of meat from taking the collars and belly flap, which I love to barbecue.
It's a nice fish, will do. All in a day's work.
A few miles away on the way home, Joe drops me in on one of his favourite spots for big pollock. The sonar had a huge show on it, but we suspected it was just a shoal of mackerel feeding. While Joe dropped the feathers down on the rod, I had a dive to 20 metres. Nope, not mackerel. Another chunky bass at 7.5 pounds, and Joe did end up catching a mackerel after all.
One of the tastiest fish in our ocean here, the mackerel. Scombus scombros. Just catching them on feathers. Absolutely delicious in the tuna family.
Lovely, mate. I hope you enjoyed this vignette of an amazing day out on the water. Shoals of bass like this are always spectacular to see, no matter how many times you do it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.